Today's episode of Film Riot is brought to you by Jack Threads.
Today on Film Riot Mondays, we do some more Harry Potter magicalness. Welcome to Film Riot Mondays, the little brother to Film Riot. On last Thursday's episode, we showed you how to do this little ditty. And we gave you one of many ways to make a spell casting effect. If you haven't seen that episode, go check it out. It has a fun full sketch in it for you to watch. But then we showed you a quick apparating effect like this. Which, if you're paying attention, you'll notice that this one looks a lot different than the one I showed you last week. Someone actually told me on Twitter that they were a little disappointed with the effect that we showed, and I actually agreed. So I went back to the drawing board and came up with this one, which is both easy to do and looks much better. So let's do this thing. So for this, you will need to shoot a clean plate, then your action, or vice versa. Just make sure you get a clean plate. Now, I locked the camera down and added movement later, but you can go the handheld route if you want. It just makes compositing a bit more difficult later since you'll have to do tracking and whatnot. You can also use a green screen if you want to stay away from masking. I used masking because I didn't want Josh to be restricted to one area, and there aren't all that many frames to mask anyway, so I was just like, I'm just gonna masking tool that son of a bee. So the first thing you need to do is to drop your clean plate in and then the clip of your actor onto the timeline of the compositor of your choice. As always, I'll be using After Effects, but as always, you can do the same thing in pretty much any compositor. Now we need to find the point where Josh is acting out the coming in and mask him out of the picture for a few frames. I did about 3 or 4. Now I'm going to cut him in, then keyframe a directional blur on him so it seems like he has some motion blur to the end of his fall, and now we have this, which looks awful, like something from I Dream of Jeannie. So now we're gonna have to go through the process of hiding the awful with Nito.
Say, do you look smooth?
So our first attempt was bad because all the parts were not independently moving. It was just one hole rotating, which ended up not selling the effect at all. So I went back and looked at some of the clips that I was trying to duplicate. And I found that the effect, when taken frame by frame, was just this orb of rotating lines. It was just the person coming back together or apart, depending on which part you're doing. And I figured an easy way to duplicate this without needing a 3D program. So first I took the singled out layer of Josh and created a still frame of the first frame he shows up in. Then I brought that still frame in and used a few filters on it to give Josh a half moon type shape. I started with the puppet tool, creating corners so that I could stretch Josh as I wanted. Then I added a vector blur and the liquify tool to give the layer more of a smoke look. But now, with my layer in the shape I wanted, I will turn on 3D and I can now rotate this layer in 3D space. So I'll do my keyframing to have it spin and then seem as though it's turning into Josh at the end. Now add a mask and animate it to reveal the shape and then into Josh at the end. Next, turn on motion blur and you have this, which feels empty and looks kind of crappy, but that's okay because now we're gonna duplicate this layer a few times, reposition each one, and redo the motion of each one so that we end up with a bunch of individual pieces rotating around each other individually. Next, I duplicate all the rotating layers and then pre-comp them. Then I repositioned and skewed this pre-comp to make it seem like it was on the ground, then added a color correction to make it pure black, then dropped the opacity of the layer, so now we have a shadow of Josh forming on the ground, which really helps sell the effect. After that, I added a smoke asset, which makes it seem like everything's actually interacting with the real world. Then, to finish it off, I pre-comped everything, added a camera shake, color correction, and a box screen till I finally ended up with this. Bazama slamma jamma, that's how we do things. And I know we were supposed to be covering more about camera angles and whatnot today, but there was a slight change in plans, what can I say? We'll be getting to that next Monday, so don't be late or I'll give you a tardy. Or some tartar sauce, whichever one is worse. Only suckers pay full price. If you love alternative apparel brands like Kid Robot and Hurley but hate wasting your cash on them, listen up. You can score these premium brands at up to 80% off every day. There's a new invite-only shopping club just for guys called Jack Threads, serving up street, skate, and surfwear brands at prices that will make your brain skis melt out of your head. There's a waitlist to join, but if you head to jackthreads.com/filmriot, you'll get instant access with all the killer hookups, so go now. And did I mention that it's free to join? Just hit up jackthreads.com/filmriot and you'll instantly start saving without having to leave your house. That's it for today, my friends, but there's still plenty more fun to be had. You could check out last week's episodes on Harry Potter or the latest episode of Film State. So many choices. So very many choices to be had. Anywho, I'll see you guys next time, so until then, be safe and watch good films.
We need you.
What is that thing? Why are you asking me? Because you shot it.